Welcome to the American Mandate. I'm Camden.
I'm Grady. In a stunning disappointment from the Trump administration, after weeks of waiting, the Epstein Phase 1 list has been released with mostly redacted names and nothing of value, including most of things we've already seen before. This is perhaps the most disappointing and probably the worst optical day this administration has seen since January 20th when they came into office. It's just a stunning disappointment, a stunning fumble. The fact that they decided to do this in phases without the entire list, and the fact that they promised that the list was going to be, it was going to have all these names and it's going to be sickening and all this other stuff. And there was stuff we already knew. There was nothing in it. And she promised that it was going to be the full list. And instead what they did is give binders to social media influencers and have them do ex-influencers and had them do a photo op in front of the White House. And hours later, they finally sent a link to the public of just a complete nothing burger. This is just utter disappointment. They're not going to be able to come back from this, I don't think.
I mean, everything that has to do with this is just bad. Like, not even just optic-wise, just optic-wise, transparency-wise. Like, take it if it's phase one. Okay, Pam Bondi tried to get out ahead of it and be like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. This is only half of it. We were expecting the other half. It's like, okay, you get that part, right? You get that pass. Why is it? It is just like the release of it. Like if you go online and look at the government site, it's just black line after black. There's entire pages that they just give that is just black line.
It's the biggest fumble I've ever seen from either either of his administrations. It's just bad. It's like Biden level bad. It's sad. It's embarrassing.
I think that's better. I don't think it's as anything bad as what Biden did, but.
It's goofy, man. It's just goofy. What are we even doing here? If the FBI in New York is legitimately withholding evidence, thousands of pages of this, then be transparent and be like, look, we were planning on releasing this today, but we just discovered that the FBI is withholding. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we promise once we have those files, you will get them. That would have been way better than, hey, come do a photo op with a phase one binder at the White House in which we don't reveal fucking anything.
Look, I am all for the Trump administration's idea of pushing independent journalists. I think that's great.
This was the worst time to do it.
This is a photo op. This is not a Marco Rubio going and doing a nice interview and a sit down. This is not a let's go on the Blaze TV or something and throw a bone to that. No, this was just getting ex-creators to be like, here you go. Here's your binder. Oh, sweet, we got phase one. Look at it. We're independent creators. And I saw the word grifter so many times today on my X feed, and understandable. I mean, like the amount of people that were just like saying, oh, this is great transparency. I think this girl named Savannah who worked at TPUSA was the only person to be like, really? From getting it. And
Scott Pressler handled it best, I think.
Yeah, but what was his name? Jack Posiak was just being was hyping this up after already having the Posobiec. Yeah, sorry for the. I can't pronounce anybody's name. I give up. No, it's not a problem.
Buddha Edge.
They need to get their names corrected. That's what I think. But it's just an utter disappointment. I mean, and this is a fumble just from stage one of the day. As far as New York Post got word of all of this going on and then posted saying, this is a nothing burger. Don't be hyped up about it. It's going to be nothing. And then sure enough, it was nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, all we got was the same information that we got before, and it was the same flight logs that we're seeing all the famous people on there. Donald Trump was on there for many times before. It doesn't mean anything. You can be on Epstein went around with a lot of famous people. None of these names mean anything of putting Donald Trump, Bill Clinton,
and I get why these pages are redacted. They're to protect the victims, but why send the pages? If they're just completely blacked out, what's the fucking point?
I understand why giving them, but at least be label saying this was the victim page. we're not going to release that. They weren't labeled. They were just, it's just line after line. It just gives more ammo to the left. I do think the funniest part of this, I'm not even going to pretend I know how to pronounce your name, so I apologize. But Representative Andy Ogles, a representative from Tennessee, drafted a Preventing Epstein Documentation Obliteration Act called the Pedo Act to stop the FBI from losing the Epstein Files. They're already going against the President of the United States.
You really think they're going to care about what a representative thinks?
No, I mean, all he did is he was very clever, and he's like, I want to call this the Pedo Act. And he thought he was so fancy about it and put it out. I'm like, no one's going to listen to Congress.
Every politician is just trying to do a grandstand and trying to have their moment, and it's just disgusting. I'm so over this government.
I'm over the entire apparatus. Everything that has to do with it. I don't, like, you and I have talked about this many times off camera, where we've realized more and more since Bush, but it's just become more and more clear over the years how little the president actually has involved with things. He can say things and be like, I want this to happen. You will have to go through so many people. And even if your next person you trust, say Pam Bondi, and you trust your next person, Kash Patel, and you trust your next person, Dan Bongino, you have a ton of higher officials who have been there for 10, 20 years, who don't care what you say, who they've been there for 10, 20 years. So maybe they're an Obama supporter. Maybe they're a Bush supporter. Or even worse, maybe they just want the downfall of the union altogether. None of these people care about you. None of these people are going to listen to our president. And the president is just this figurehead that hopefully we can end foreign conflicts with.
Yeah. The thing about the deep state is it's very deep, and it is ingrained in these agencies. You can't just request these files to come from the deep state and they're just going to give it to you. And this should be interesting if they do get a hand on anything, because I imagine most of the evidence that is going to implicate most of the top dogs in this whole scheme are probably exonerated by deleting evidence. But, you know, they're going to let many of the lower level people take the fall for it, and I look forward to seeing any evidence come out in the coming days. But the fact that that they're just requesting this stuff to be handed over after they already disobeyed is just insane. How about you do a raid on those FBI offices like they did in Mar-a-Lago? How about that? No, they'll never do that.
No.
They want to go by the letter of the law. They want it to look nice. It's like, these people aren't going to listen to you. They are actively destroying evidence. Arrest them.
The problem that we're running into is there's too much. It almost seems like there's too much pressure on the Trump administration. Not saying like, oh, they don't deserve it and things like that, but there's a lot of pressure on the Trump administration for transparency. There's a lot of it for Doge, to make sure our government is funded correctly. And the problem is when you say you're going to cut all this money, you say you're going to release all these files, you say you're going to cut down prices, and you do all this, and then you do things like you say, I'm going to cut down prices, then you put a whole bunch of tariffs out. You say we're going to cut government spending, then you put the spending bill package and you push it through, and all Republicans push it through, and you give the Democrats ammo. Like, you do all these things and then you undercut exactly what your argument is. And the worst thing is you're doing all of them at the same time. And so
then you want to talk about you want to end this pedophile ring, and then you extradite Andrew Tate and his brother.
Don't even get me started on that. Like,
into America, you pressure Romania to bring them back.
So Here's a bigger problem with it that I'm seeing the right kind of push on the Tate brothers thing, because Ron DeSantis came out and was like saying you're not welcome here, and the right is trying to make the argument of like, like Candace Owens like put out saying how dare you, these are American citizens, I'm glad you didn't become president, and I'm like,
everybody's calling him Ron DeSanctimonious. It's like, dude, he's literally the only.
They have dual citizenship in multiple countries. They like just all over the planet. They've decided to set up shop in Romania. They are charged still with all these sex scandals, all these cam girl things.
And they have to go back March 24th.
And they have to go back to the court case isn't over. I believe in innocent until proven guilty. I agree with that. If you look at the actual nasty videos that they've put out, I'm sorry.
At best, these guys are pimps.
At best, these guys are just they self-righteous in themselves. They
Ponzi
think they're the
scheme
thing.
Pimps.
I don't disagree with what Ron DeSantis said. Like, he's saying you're not welcome. Your kind is not what. Like, if you're He's not banning you from America. He's not
arresting them when they arrive in Florida. He's just saying your rhetoric. That's what he said in the speech. That rhetoric is not welcome here in Florida.
Yes, your rhetoric, all the crimes that you've basically been accused of, if they're true, we don't want that here. I agree with Ron DeSantis. Yeah. And so I think the right is just getting too over the top at him. It's not like...
It's wild that the MAGA movement loves the Tate brothers. And it's just so hypocritical.
Clear. No, it's clear why they did it. They're still the same middle school boys that were in 2015, 2016 when Donald Trump was attacking all the establishment types, when all of us didn't know what establishment word meant. We were just like, oh, Donald Trump,
this is fun.
Because
he says shit about the Matrix, and they're like, oh, this guy's
No, but that's
great.
what I mean. We like those people. So we're like, oh, sweet, we got the Tate brothers in here tacking on the libs. We got, like, not to also bring in Steven Crowder, but those kind of people that
right.
just jumping on the pile. And so, yeah, when Tate says a whole bunch of shit, 10% of what he says is, it's true. But then look at the rest.
Tate's smart. He knows how to manipulate people, and he knows that if you want to convince people, you have to say some right things. And
he's so manipulative. Like, he has taken an entire generation of men that follow him and has pushed this whole narrative of how men are on top of women in every scenario, not like a gender role thing, not like a nuclear family kind of household thing. No, he doesn't follow any of that. He believes that, I'm going to be with a whole bunch of women. I'm going to have as many kids as possible. I'm going to be basically the pimp of my household. And that's the stuff he's preying on to other men that are considered beta male type or just don't have a real clear structure, a clear goal to go forward. And so they I see myself in Tate. I want to be Tate. And it's like, you don't want to be that human being. And so I agree with Ron DeSantis said.
I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think Andrew Tate and his ideology and the people that follow him are just men's response to radical feminism and how they've treated men. I think men have gone on the opposite side and basically made their own version of that. I've always said that. That's how I view the Tate movement. It's a radical reaction to feminism and how bad that became.
Feminism from beginning to the end was terrible. Looking at it as a whole, I agree. The thing with feminism is the same to the beginning with this whole men's rights movement, right? I agree women deserve rights. I agree to be an equal partner in this country. You deserve to have the right to vote. If you want to work, you should have the right to work. The problem that we're having in this country is that the industrial complex or Rockefeller, all these people took advantage of that and basically made it a whole society where women have to work to survive. They don't get the option to be home if their husband decides that they want to allow them to be home. We have created that and the taken over of that. Then you had second and third wave feminism that just kept continuing down the road. And now it's crazy. Now third wave feminism is basically just men's rights, which is trans women. Yeah. And then men's right was a same thing. It's like, we're getting our rights taken over, so now we're going to go to the whole other extreme and do the whole same thing over again. It's a lot. I was hoping the Tate brothers would be out of the news by now, but now we're just welcoming them in with open arms to the country as far as our government is concerned, and that's the main problem.
But it doesn't seem like Trump even knows anything about it. Because I've heard, I've seen some articles, Trump pressured Romania to release the Tate brothers, and then he was asked about the Tate brothers. He goes, I don't even know what you're talking about. He goes, I'll look into it. I don't know what you're talking about.
There's good and bad sides to this. I don't expect him to know about the Tate brothers. That's good. What I am concerned about is he doesn't seem to know anything that's going on with Pam Bondi and people. Yeah. When looking at the cabinet, like
we talked about yesterday, it really does feel like the president delegates all these tasks. He doesn't really know what the fuck's going on.
It's interesting because kind of piggyback on what happened yesterday with that whole cabinet meeting, and we were talking about everyone's really not happy with Elon Musk. A lot of the cabinet members complained to Susan Wiles, who's the chief of staff there, that
she's the intermediary. Yeah.
Basically she's get in line. Basically, was her whole thing, and basically just slammed the door on them metaphorically.
Yeah,
and so all of them were expecting to speak, and I guess that's
A few of them did, but not many.
No, and I mean, as many news reports had stated, if you didn't watch the whole thing, it took like 37 minutes for even Vance to say anything. Like, it was just back and forth
It was
between
like
Trump
2
and
seconds
Elon.
of Hegesteth, 5 minutes of Elon, like a minute of Vance, and I think maybe Howard Lutnick talked for a minute, and that was about it. It wasn't much
Which is
else.
crazy because Trump is heavily delegating everything to these people. I want to hear from these people. Like, when we're running like regular cabinet meetings, like as far as...
I wanted him to move from topic to hot topic and be like, move down the room. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, like, Rubio, tell me what's going on with what you're working on.
He talked about Ukraine for like 30 minutes, and you could tell Marco was like ready to talk about it, and then he just never gave him the chance and just moved on.
It's because Trump just does this weave, and then he forgets everyone else is there.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, especially when everything is heavily delegated. And that's the problem that we're running into with Pam Bondi.
He delegates everything. He doesn't even really know everything that's going on. And we want to know the people that are actually making all the decisions here, at the lower levels beneath the president, what they think about it, because they're the ones actively doing these things. And they didn't get the chance to speak.
It's a weird opposite problem from Biden, because when Biden was like,
Biden was just a shell.
You're just a shell. Everyone is delegated. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But you have a mental dementia, and that's why you don't know what's going on. Trump should know what's going on. He should be very involved. And
the fact that I don't know, I haven't watched the entire Starmer interview, so he might have mentioned the Epstein thing, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't seem like he is quite involved in that process of what's going on with the FBI and Pam Bondi.
I'm not even mad about that either. I'm mad that he is not making a public statement being like, get your act together, Pam Bondi. Get your act together, Kash Patel. Like, seriously.
Or be like, hey, I'm the president. Call that FBI off and be like, you have like
You know
an
how
hour.
good for optics that would be? Of being just like making a public phone call and then just post it on X being like, I called all these people to say to release it. I don't care what's in it.
Yeah.
Except he's not going to do that.
Right.
He's not going to overstep his people like that. He already overstepped them enough in the cabinet meeting, which it's so funny we consider that a cabinet meeting because it was just cabinet listening.
Right. I'm sure there's a meeting afterwards, but the public part of it wasn't.
Right. I want to get into anything else you wanted to speak on that, because I do want to get into this CIA UK thing that's going on.
I guess we can move on.
I think we've just beaten that horse to death. Basically, what's going on is the CIA is looking into the UK's reported backdoor request to Apple encryption, which is specifically their iCloud feature. This report comes to us from Sky News. Tulsi Gabbard, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, has said that a request from the UK to Apple for a backdoor to be put in their encryption would be a clear and egregious violation of Americans' privacy and civil liberties. Apple last week withdrew some of its secure storage features from UK. It was reported previously that the UK government had asked the US tech giant to give it access to users' protected data worldwide. This, if you actually look into it, the government is not even disclosing whether they've required and made an order to do this. And Apple is legally not even allowed to say whether or not they've been told. So it's this weird situation where UK is trying to attack people's free speech, attack people like Germany. Germany's going the whole... We talked about that a few days ago, where they're actually charging people against free speech. Well, and this is what UK is doing. I wonder if it'll
get a little better in Germany, since it's not the conservative, it's not like the quote-unquote far-right party, but it is a conservative party. I'm hoping it's a more moderate view of free speech.
So.
But
I think listening to who's likely to become the German prime minister, I don't think so. The UK is a totally different problem. Germany's going after free speech. UK is a complete surveillance state.
Speaking of that, back to Starmer, him and Trump, met in the Oval Office and they shook hands, and during that, somebody asked Vance in front of Starmer about his speeches in Europe about free speech and how he accused Germany and the UK of infringing on the right of free speech. And Vance just straight up called out Starmer right to his face. He goes, "Yeah, I said what I said." And he goes, they're a partner, obviously, but we believe in free speech in the West, and we need to make sure our partners are doing that. And Starmer panicked and went out, and he was like, "No, we've always believed in free speech, and we want to continue to believe in free speech." And you could just tell he was embarrassed.
No, when you do stuff like this backdoor and you're forcing a company to be able to look at their private data. This is why I'm an Apple user, because they are very, like, there's a reason that's Apple and not Samsung, right? Apple, it uses its iCloud features, uses everything else to be very secure. I mean, and Vance had every right to call out Strymer, and I don't know. It's crazy that we're allies with all these countries in the West that don't have Western values. Our Western values are you have the right to protect yourself, and that includes online, and that includes in person in your home, and you have the right to free speech. You will not be prosecuted from the government for expressing your views. And this is what we're just seeing from the Western, and the United States is trying to do the same thing.
It is scary how close we came. I mean, if Kamala had won, we would have lost many more rights to free speech, and many of our allies would have continued down the road they are. But right now, we're kind of at a crossroads because we have now flipped the script, and we're now accusing all of our allies of abandoning that right, just like we were under Biden. So I'm hoping we can turn it around.
We've basically paused the issue, though, because what we were hoping for Trump is it was a bring us back to the center as far as views go. So there's now a clear moderate right, moderate left, and that's what the party should be. Because I would be considered more extreme right by the left people, because I believe in not killing the unborn, and I believe in free speech and all of that. But then you use the rocket ship of the Republican Party to push at least a moderate, what's considered moderate views by the country. And that's the same thing for the left. And that was what I was hoping for Trump. What we've done is almost just put a pause.
Yeah.
That's all we've done. We was like, oh, so we're not going crazy left, but we're just pausing where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not being transparent.
Not about this.
No, I mean, if I understand taking the long time to cross out all those names, right, of victim names, but then what is the point of the book? Just say that, hey, this is the same information you have. This is the victim list, and then go off and say we're fighting the FBI right now to get the full list. Like, say that. Why release? Why do this photo op?
They could have released exactly what they released today, but the way they did it was just embarrassing. It was just pathetic.
It makes us just look like all these places like the UK, who is pathetic. And
you know what, man? It just makes me think that we're never going to get the list. And I do hope we do, but it's just like same old, same old.
I know, especially here's the thing. If they come out and they say that the list was deleted, guarantee you Donald Trump was on that list. And that's the sad thing.
Yep.
That I was hoping that no matter what, we would
and
get
not
the
just
list
him.
out.
You know, it could have been many high Republican leaders in Congress that they didn't want to lose, and they're just like, it's probably best to just act like the FBI deleted this.
That's my concern. And until that list is out in the public and we can see it all, you can't trust this government to do anything.
No.
And it's sad.
It's sad because, you know, it's a possibility that if that does happen, that a rogue FBI genuinely did delete massive portions that didn't have anything to do with Trump, but we'll never know that. So we can never really have full transparency.
And we'll never trust our government. Donald Trump is our hope to then turning into us starting to trust our government. Starting with Kash Patel, starting with Pete Hegseth going on SecDev's YouTube and just saying, this is what we're doing this week. The VA guy talking consistently on X saying, this is what we're doing. Elon Musk pushing their employees to just say, hey, are you freaking alive? Like, this is the stuff that we want, and it's completely undercut by these files, by the JFK files, by the 9/11 files. How are none of these stuff ready to go, like, just coming into power? Like, clearly he was going to push these forward, and I just feel like this is, as we've constantly said, this is the worst optics for Donald Trump. It's going to continue having these issues if something doesn't take over the news.
Yep. It's bad.
I mean, maybe we're just
Listen,
overstating
I'm not putting full blame on somebody like Kash Patel. I think he just got there, and I think he's battling a seriously deep state FBI. And, you know, Pam Bonnie's in a tight situation, but the way that she handled the news and the way she handled the release of this is just pathetic. I'm not saying she's corrupt. I'm not saying she's protecting anybody. She's probably working against a lot of bullshit right now. But she should have released this in a way better way. She should not have been like, okay, come on over, ex-influencers. We're going to do a photo op. We're going to give a binder of a bunch of horseshit.
It is the problem because it is easy for us to critique, right? We do not know the behind the scenes.
Right.
We don't know if, Like that whole binder, they just threw everything on the desk in all random boxes, and she had to put it together for the binder.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know that. Take it, you can have a whole bunch of people come in. But
My
then
problem with it is she said she'd seen stuff in the list and said that there was some really disgusting, shocking stuff in there, and claims that she hasn't seen anything other than what she released today, and she's waiting on the rest tomorrow. And there's nothing in there particularly new or interesting.
But she then also handed the binder to everyone, so there's no smoking gun in here.
Yeah.
So it's like, which is it?
Right.
What's the disgusting
So does
bit?
she have more that she hasn't released today that
Or did
she's
cross
not received?
out the stuff that was disgusting?
Right.
That's
Maybe the victim stuff that she had to do to protect was the disgusting stuff, but I just don't get it. It's crazy.
Yeah. I
don't know.
I guess move on to something not more happy, I guess, but like something that doesn't have to do with a pedophile, as we've done with Tate and Epstein. Continuing with the UK's issues, a group of over 1,000 musicians is hoping the sound of their collective silence speaks volumes to lawmakers in the UK. That is their quote. Apparently what's going on with them is they created a silent album that was titled "Is This What We Want" on Tuesday in response to the UK's basically proposed changes to a copyright law that would allow AI to look over past music from all these different artists, play it, and that's how they're able to learn. And UK artists basically believe that this is a breach in copyright, and I don't know. It's interesting. This is from NBC and the Associated Press. The British government said it was consulting on a new approach that protects the interests of both AI developers and right holders and delivers a solution which allows both to thrive. It added that no decisions have been taken. I don't know. AI has always been a weird thing for me. I think other people are more knowledgeable than me. Speaking of Dima, but wish we had a third mic, so our producer can actually talk about it. But but I don't know. I don't have it. It's interesting that there's over 1,000 artists that are like very much against like this whole new proposal, but
I don't have many thoughts on it, but I think it's a sound criticism of AI in general, being in the music industry and the art industry and any industry really, of like how is that going to influence our jobs. And I don't know what I don't know the whole history of it or how it's going to play out.
The two sides of AI is always going to be
AI will be better for humanity in many ways. But when it comes to art, kind of the more artistic side of things, I guess it probably is a worry for many people.
It's the whole thing of like, it is progression better for the mass. And there's the whole argument with like, say, a semi-truck being automated, right? And whether or not taking those jobs, if there will be a secondary job that replaces it, like everything else as far as technology goes, because semi-trucks.
Do you think that's a good thing in the future to have like automated trucks?
No, I'm like everyone in the tech industry. This is one thing I agree with Tucker Carlson on. I think it's a terrible thing. Really? It is the number one job market piece for ungraduate, like just high school diploma men. And it is the number one high paying job for them. And so there has to be something in the industry to replace it. I think there will be.
It reminds me of that Logan movie. Remember those auto trucks that like ran them off the highway in that one scene?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was like it was just the trailer. There was nothing. There was no like truck in the front towing anything. But it just kind of reminds me of that. Is that the future?
I understand jobs will replace and new things will open up. Like there
are some
there's
jobs
the whole argument
that it's
with like farming, right? Because now farming is so automated. Like you require one piece of equipment and you're able to do a lot of the farming.
Yeah.
And it used to be all done by hand.
There's some jobs that, I remember Dima showing me a video of like somebody dipping like wine bottles in the wax. It's like a machine can do that. I mean,
yes.
It takes no skill.
But I think that's the difference, right? We're talking about putting wax in or a retail job. Like there's stuff that those jobs will move on. CDL is a very specific skill. I know, I'm in the industry. Right. And it is something that you have to do all this background check paperwork for. You have to take a whole bunch of tests for. And you have... It's doesn't cost as much as going to, say, a trade school, yet you're specialized in it, you're a professional driver.
The sad reality is the second they find a way to make the AI trucks more affordable than paying truck drivers, that's when it will happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's just reality.
No, it is reality. And that's kind of the whole thing with coming back to the argument with like these 1,000 musicians. Art is that one thing that you think would be separate. Like AI has been kind of helpful to people who are like, I can't afford to make a logo person, make a logo buy a logo from somebody. So AI, I'm able to make a logo with this technology. And then there's kind of a weird thing of like, well, how do the rights work with that? But it is considered yours now. And that takes away business from people who are artistic.
Yeah.
So it's a weird conversation. I need to do more research on AI just as a whole, because just the entire...
Yeah, I don't know enough about it.
I'm
pretty much just talking out of my ass.
I'm basically just like bringing it up just as kind of a general... It's interesting. I don't have necessarily the most to say about the musician part other than it's...
I don't think it has much...
It's interesting how scared
industry, but...
people are of AI. Like with Elon Musk trying
remember the writer's strike a couple years ago?
Yes.
That was like last year?
Well, you remember Secret Invasion's intro. Like, it was done completely with AI.
That's interesting.
It's our entire industry is trying to turn forward into AI. I mean, think about it, 5 years ago. Like, and now... I use AI just to like help me edit a sentence and like re-edit.
I love using ChatGPT to kind of like focus my ramblings, when I'm writing notes or whatever, or when I want like a kind of a quick history lesson on a subject that I don't know a lot about. It's pretty useful for something like that. But yeah, it's gonna go places that I don't think most people can even really fathom. So
right.
I guess we could talk about the gold card that Trump was talking about.
Yeah, you and I had like kind of a huge disagreement with the gold card. What's
your stance on it?
I think it's I think this is the huge difference between you and I. Is I think it's the wrong time. It basically puts a price on American citizenship. I understand we need money. I understand we're at a huge deficit. But putting $5 million on, here's a card, you get to come to America. It's basically hey, if you're rich, here's your card. And I don't like it.
It's less about putting a price on American citizenship and more about taking advantage of the time we have now, bringing all these companies back to America and saying there's people with the expertise that these companies are going to want that don't live in America and don't have a work visa, might have a hurdle there. This is saying like, hey, if you want to make a lot of business in the United States and there's people around the world that you know are qualified for this position, you can pay $5 million with a much bigger return and bring these people in with a path to citizenship, but they can freely work in the USA. That's my pushback. I think it's the proper time because you have companies like Apple and all these car companies wanting to come back to America right now because of the Trump administration. They're going to need to hire some people that live in India or China or wherever, qualified people that can't come here for whatever reason, and this would be the way to do it. So that's my pushback.
I just don't see Apple spending $5 million per employee.
Right.
To kind of like...
But like, say an AI company starts booming in America, and there's somebody in India that's got like expert knowledge, or there's somebody in Taiwan that can make these chips better than anybody, and we need to get them to the USA. It's like, there you go, gold card. Boom.
Yeah, but I think like you could like you can lobby for like a certain person to get through, and like these companies being like, hey, he's coming on a work visa. So,
but if you have like a company that's worth billions and billions of dollars, that's nothing to them. If it's like this person's going to come in with their expertise and make us millions and millions and millions of dollars, they might pay that money.
I just think it's a distraction. I think it's...
I don't see it as a distraction. I do see it as maybe a little high priced, if anything.
I think it's just like the $250 Trump bill that's going through Congress. That's not going to go anywhere.
Well, that's just goofy.
It is goofy.
I don't think this is goofy.
I think the whole thing is goofy.
I don't think because the gold card's happening. The $250 bill is not going to happen. So that's the difference. This is a legitimate program. And on the subject of that, because that's under the guise of Howard Lutnick, it's kind of his wheelhouse, Secretary of Commerce. He's also talking about folding the Postal Service under the kind of Census Bureau that they have.
Right.
Kind of streamlining because they have like 625,000 employees that work for the census, and it's like that feels like overkill. And we have a lot of people working for the Postal Service. He's thinking of folding the Postal Service into that program and basically having people that do door-to-door mail delivery to handle the census part of it as well and streamline the whole thing.
I think it's interesting. I didn't realize how big the Census Department was.
It's massive. Millions of actually, I think he said billions of dollars get wasted on it every year.
Which
and,
I think,
and $7 billion get wasted at the Postal Service every year. So he's trying to streamline both.
I need to look more into the census because the census never made sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, as the government knows who is paying taxes, right?
Why are they going door to door? I've never had somebody come door to door. I've never received a letter saying,
I've had once been sent a letter.
Really?
That's it. I've had one time. And
just go to the IRS and be like, hey, we just needed an account of like every American.
Like, who's every American? I mean, I guess you don't put in when you're doing taxes what your ethnicity is and all of that, and that's the stuff they want. They want to know your gender. They want to know your ethnicity.
But if
they want to know
somebody
your
came to
age.
my door and asked me that question, I'd go fuck yourself. See you later. None of your business.
Yeah, fair enough. I understand the importance of the census. It feels
kind of totalitarian. I know that's a weird position. But when somebody comes to your door and be like, hey, what's your ethnicity? How many people live here? It's like, go away.
Yeah, no, fair enough. The census has always been kind of a...
It's like, go to the Department of Transportation and you know I exist. I have a social security number. Like, go to the IRS.
It is weird because the government knows that we exist. And also just based on the census, you have the past census, let's say. Yeah. Why do you necessarily need another? I mean, it's just to change like where you live and like change what the demographics have changed. I've just never seen like something that like really of value that we get from
why
the
don't
census.
Why don't they just like email every DMV in America?
Maybe that's a bad take. I don't know. Like, I don't know enough about the census. Maybe I'm just
I'm talking
out
on my ass, but my face value opinion is that it's kind of goofy.
My face value is I don't like writing stuff down like about myself enough. Like, yeah. I don't like talking about my family. I don't like saying like, hey, this is my past history. I don't care about any of that stuff.
Like, I have some libertarian leaning values, and the idea of the government wanting to know about me is a no-no. It's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, fair.
The government doesn't need to know shit about me.
The government knows enough about me as being a commercial hazmat driver.
Exactly.
I don't like they know there's not something that they don't know about me. Let's just say that. Yeah. Like I have my fingerprints. I have a TSA card. I have every kind of credential besides a boat license. Right. They have enough knowledge about me. Yes, I'm white. Thank you. I'll sign your little pretty box, I guess.
So
I don't know.
You got anything else?
No, the whole news day was basically going to push this Epstein thing because
I was hoping it was going to be a bombshell day of like, this is what we learned.
I knew it wasn't. Yeah, that's why I wrote some, like, there was some new stuff coming down with say there was these online scam centers in Thailand, Myanmar, and China. Like, basically that where 7,000 people were basically being like held because China's trying to now crack down in the region on these scam centers, which is interesting because majority of them are in India, but they're cracking down on that. And there's like people getting kind of brought in by like the hundreds of the thousands to basically like, hey, if you come and work for us, you can get citizenship or you can get paid. And it's under all these false pretenses. And then they kind of get into this like virtual slavery is what's kind of been put. The NPR put out a report on this. It's kind of interesting, but that's kind of what's been going on in the world. It's been a lot of UK trying to crack down on people and getting people's business. It's a lot of like foreign governments finally cracking down on these, like either it was the sex industries or it is the scam centers. And then it's no transparency in America. That's where our country's at.
I agree.
That's where our world is at. That we just hate our citizens. We don't want to tell them anything of the world, and we just want to keep the same people in power. And it's just the same merry-go-round. I guess I just had higher hopes for where this country was going with Donald Trump in,
Listen, I
They
think
still
he's
have
doing,
hope.
I think he is doing some good things, and I'm excited for some things to come through, and I hope this Epstein thing has a happy ending in terms of getting some information out, and I hope that the economy gets better. But I have my worries.
There are 4 things that the Trump administration needs to solve in this year. It is the Ukraine and Russia war. It is the Israel and Palestine situation.
If
Not
he gets
just
that
Israel
war
versus
ended-
Hamas. It's Israel-Palestine situation.
Yeah.
Whatever you and I will debate on that at some point. But
we can agree that it needs to end.
it needs to end. Whatever that situation is, it needs to end. Trump needs to do that. We need to take down inflation, and all of these files have to be released in its entirety.
If he can do all 4 of those things this year, well, inflation will take a little longer, but if he can do at least those 3 things this year and start getting the economy better,
That's what I mean.
He can come back from this period of kind of bad optics.
No, everything would have been erased. No one's going to care about this period of
period
time.
will be forgotten
No one's going to think
if he
about
can-
Pam Bondi today.
Right, nobody's going to give it. 4 years from now, if she released all these files and everything's transparent, nobody's going to give a shit about this day.
But today,
this is bad.
Today, this is bad. And if it continues down this way, I really worry for the direction this country's going. And I'm worried about the members that we have in that cabinet. If this is our level of transparency, if this is what we consider transparent when we're in our honeymoon phase where everyone's in and we got all our controversial picks done, this is the good side. Yeah. I hate to see what happens when we, like a year down the line, when we're not doing videos on YouTube.
Now, you said Dan Bongino's in next week?
No, March 14th, so a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, he has to wind down his show still and finish out, doing all the ad reads.
I was going to say, it'd be nice
and
to have him in now. Maybe he could kind of have some pep in his step about getting this shit solved. But
yeah, it's just he can't do that because he has
Cash is a one-man
he has
show.
a day job. It's I mean, like, he is putting in his 2 weeks to his own company,
right?
And he has to he can't, because there's a whole ethics thing with Dan Bongino, because which is kind of weird with Gavin Newsom's side, with doing that whole podcast thing. But there's an actual ethics thing with working directly in the government
and having another job,
and not just having another job, but like having a job that's your job is to give out like information that you know.
Yeah, I wonder if Newsom is doing it for free, because like if he's not, that's kind of conflict of interest as the governor. I feel like. You know what Ron should do? When his term is up, he should start a podcast.
I don't want to hear a single word that he has to say on a podcast.
No, he's so uninteresting, but it would be so funny.
Did you listen to
It'd be so
X-Space?
funny if Ron and Newsom both had podcasts.
I think what we should do is this is Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom started this thing where they had it was basically the runner-up if Donald Trump and Joe Biden both died. We had the secondary debate of Gavin Newsom versus Ron DeSantis. I think every year we should have a debate between a Republican governor and a Democrat governor. Yeah. I think that we have
we choose the worst,
or we have like a whole like March Madness thing. It's like rounds and they go down to the top 2. Who's the top Democrat? Who's the top Republican? I mean, that's what we're supposed to do when it comes to presidential election. It doesn't happen like that. Mostly it's just the people who find a way to raise as much money. So that's how people like Trump and Bloomberg have these like a little bit of an up.
I want to see Hochul versus Ron. That'd be good.
Hochul versus Ron? Hochul cannot hold her own in her own meeting.
That's why I want to see it.
No, I'd be more interested in someone like Shapiro. Democrats really have a real problem right now when it comes to talent. I mean, the top person is going to be Kamala Harris. I mean,
that's embarrassing.
Think about the governors they have. They have,
but
our
honestly,
governor,
I'm
Governor
worried
Hobbs.
I'm worried about like Republican talent right now. Like when I think about Byron, what's his name?
Byron Daniels.
Donalds.
Yeah.
I'm just like, really? That's the best you can do?
I don't think so. I think he's just the most popular candidate right now in Florida.
But when I think of like other governors, I'm like, Abbott, he's all right. Doesn't have a great track record,
limited, though, so he's going to be done this.
He's going to be out, and I just feel like, I don't know, man. And like Congress, I just look around and I'm like, these are some bad people. I'm just like, we don't have a lot of people.
Every time it doesn't feel like we have a lot of people, and then you go and see.
I'll tell you what, we have much better
stage.
people than we did like 15 years ago when it was like McCain and Romney were our best people.
But think about,
like,
we haven't been able to develop talent because normally we have people able to be on the national stage. Donald Trump has been
he's stolen the talent for a decade.
He's stolen the stage for a decade.
When he's going to be out, it's going to be either really good or really bad for the party.
We'll see if Vance is able to hold his own. I think he will.
he's showing promise.
So far, I think the only person I'm not disappointed with is Vance as far as the cabinet.
Even today, I mean, I was like, damn, dude. Because Trump was, when Trump will talk a lot of shit about somebody, but when he's got to meet with them in person, he's very respectful and very chill and very cordial. Vance didn't give a shit. He was just like, yeah, I said what I said. These guys are being bad with free speech.
We need more of that. We need more of just there's the whole transparency side. There is being honest, and we just need to start calling out these countries that are not having Western values. If they're not going to have Western values, we need to leave NATO. We need to leave UN. We need to stop putting money into these places. I mean, you saw I don't know if you saw what was going on with the WHO, but we pulled out of there, and they're like freaking out because they don't have any money because United States funds the world.
Good riddance.
It sucks because I wish that program could actually be a good program because
it is long gone, like far gone.
Well, think how many all these programs, American Red Cross,
the way they handled COVID, I will
never.
It's unforgivable. They need to be completely eradicated, and something needs to take its place.
I agree.
Anyway, anything else?
I don't really have anything else today.
I'm hoping tomorrow they can turn this around. We'll see.
I don't think they will. I think if anything, there's just going to be something else that replaces it that is equally or more so as bad. So
I hope you're wrong.
Probably. I mean, but hey, it'd make an interesting Friday show.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Anyhow, thanks for listening to us. We'll catch you tomorrow.